not what killed it. Everyone blames Spotify and Amazon for killing HMV. Grab your popcorn, because that's not even close to the whole story. Long before streaming existed, before the internet existed, HMV was already fighting for its life more than once. This is a story about a company that survived 2 world wars, then nearly got taken out by its own strategy, twice. And weirdly, it's still around today, just not in the way you'd expect, and not owned by anyone you'd expect either. HMV's story starts in 1921 in London with a painting. You've probably seen it. A little terrier named Nipper, tilting his head at an old gramophone horn, listening for his master's voice. That painting became the trademark for the Gramophone Company, one of the earliest record labels on Earth. In July 1921, the company opened its first proper retail shop on Oxford Street under the name His Master's Voice. According to widely reported accounts, the composer Sir Edward Elgar himself cut the ribbon. Not bad for a record shop's opening day. This wasn't some scrappy startup dream. HMV was born as the retail showroom for one of the biggest music companies on the planet, and it had serious people running it from day one. The man who shaped HMV into a real retail force was Edward Lewis. He started out working for the Gramophone Company and later became a driving force behind Decca Records, which he helped build into a major label in its own right. What's documented about Lewis is that he was relentlessly commercial, a deal maker who understood that selling music wasn't just about pressing records, it was about controlling the shopfront experience too. Under his influence, HMV wasn't treated as a side counter, bolted onto a record label. It became a destination, with listening booths where customers could sample a record before buying it. A genuinely new idea in the 1920s that turned browsing into an event. He stayed a major figure in the British recording industry for decades and was knighted for his contribution to it. There's no scandal attached to his name, no garage founder myth, just a documented track record of turning music retail into an actual industry rather than an afterthought. That's the character here. Not a rebel, not a showman, a builder who made buying a record feel like an occasion, and whose instincts kept paying off long after he'd left day-to-day control. Fast forward through the decades, and HMV became the dominant music retailer in the UK, with stores spreading across Ireland, Canada, Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong. At its peak, it wasn't just records, it was tapes, then CDs, then DVDs, then video games. In 1998, under its then-parent EMI, HMV's ownership picked up Waterstones, the bookshop chain, folding it into a wider retail group. For a while, this all worked. Big stores, big city centers, a one-stop shop for anything you'd want to consume on a Saturday afternoon. HMV wasn't just surviving, it was the default place millions of people went to buy entertainment. The kind of shop where you'd wander in for 1 CD and walk out an hour later with 3. That dominance came with a price tag though. Big expansion, big leases, big overhead. All fine when the money keeps flowing in, all a ticking clock when it doesn't. Here's the part people get wrong. It's easy to say streaming and downloads killed HMV, and yes, that hurt. But CD sales had been sliding for years before HMV's real crisis hit. And rivals like iTunes had been around since 2003, nearly a decade before things got dire. HMV's actual documented problem was slower and messier. It kept betting on big physical superstores while carrying heavy debt from its expansion years. All while supermarkets like Tesco and Asda undercut it on CD and DVD prices as loss leaders, meaning they sold discs cheap on purpose just to get shoppers through the door for groceries. HMV's own digital download store launched years late and never built real market share. So it wasn't one killer technology, it was a company stuck defending expensive real estate against cheaper rivals on one side and free digital convenience on the other, with not enough cash left over to fix either problem properly. By 2011, HMV Group was drowning enough that it sold off Waterstones just to raise cash and cut debt, selling the golden goose to feed the struggling one. It didn't buy enough time. Store closures kept mounting, profit warnings kept coming, and suppliers reportedly grew nervous about extending credit to a retailer whose sales kept sliding. Then in January 2013, HMV called in administrators. the UK's version of a company saying it can't pay what it owes and needs court-supervised protection while it figures out what's next, similar in spirit to Chapter 11 in the US, though not identical. It's not an automatic death sentence, but it's the sound of the alarm going off for real. And almost on cue, HMV handed the internet its most viral moment of the entire saga. As staff were being laid off inside the company's offices, employees briefly took over the official HMV Twitter account and live tweeted their own layoffs in real time to hundreds of thousands of amused, horrified onlookers. It became national news, genuinely one of the strangest PR disasters in UK corporate history, and it happened at the exact moment the company most needed to look stable. Here's where the story stops matching the doom narrative people remember. HMV's 2013 administration ended with restructuring firm Hilco buying the business, closing roughly a third of its stores and keeping the rest trading. It survived. Then in December 2018, HMV fell into administration again, still weighed down by rent and by that same brutal physical retail math, high street landlords wanting the same money for shrinking foot traffic. This time it was bought by Canadian retailer Doug Putman, owner of Sunrise Records, who took over the brand in early 2019, kept dozens of UK stores open, and folded the business into his existing music retail operation. Both times, HMV went through the formal insolvency process, and both times, somebody bought it out of that process and kept it running. That's a very different story from a company simply switching off the lights. HMV exists today. Fewer stores, a different owner, a smaller footprint, but real shelves with real vinyl and real customers. Doug Putman has kept investing in the brand, reopening the flagship Oxford Street store in 2021, physically returning HMV to almost the exact spot where the whole thing began a century earlier. Hilco, for its part, made its money as a turnaround specialist and moved on to its next distressed retailer, which is simply what that industry does. The employees behind that infamous Twitter meltdown mostly lost their jobs in the 2013 cuts regardless. A reminder that a viral moment doesn't undo a redundancy notice, no matter how many retweets it gets. Edward Lewis never lived to see any of this, obviously, and there's no dramatic villain here to point fingers at, no fraud, no scandal beyond one very unfortunate Twitter afternoon. The honest lesson is less satisfying than a good villain story. HMV didn't get killed by one disruptive technology. It got worn down slowly by carrying too much debt, too many expensive leases, and too much confidence that people would keep showing up in person forever. The market doesn't wait for you to catch up gracefully. It just moves. And either you move with it or somebody buys your name out of administration later, maybe twice. So do you think HMV deserved to survive twice? Or was this just delaying the inevitable? Tell me what you think in the comments. Subscribe. We post a new bankruptcy story every day. Which company's collapse do you want to see next? Write it in the comments.